This is one of those difficult passages that I'm turning to today, where Jesus heals a deeply troubled man. There's much debate about the location of the incident. However, what matters most is that Jesus meets this troubled person. Let me read to you from this 8th chapter of Luke's Gospel, verses 27 through to 29. When Jesus stepped ashore, because he'd been across the lake, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into solitary places. You see, the community, the authorities, have been unable to really help this severely afflicted man. So much so that he had to live in the caves and he threw himself into fire. He's a very poorly man in every sense of that word. And Jesus' approach is much more controlled, much more able to reach out to him. We're told in verse 30 in the passage, Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" It doesn't get into I've been hearing of all that's been going on. I've been watching it. What is your name? There's a real concern from Jesus for the man. Not only what he's done, what he's been, he wants to know about him. And Jesus brings healing and wholeness to this man. And the demons are cast into a herd of pigs. Now, this is a very famous biblical story. And a lot of people, when they're telling it, remind people that the pigs are regarded as unclean. But there's something more important than just that the pigs were unclean. It was a business. You see, because it was unclean, at the other side of the lake, there were those that ran businesses in rearing pigs to be sold into the communities that were outside of Jerusalem and outside of the parts of the Holy Land. And so it was that when Jesus brought about this healing, or all the pigs went over into the water, it deeply affected their business. Jesus upsets the status quo and even the economy of some. You see, the demon-free man wants to go with Jesus. Now, you can understand that. Jesus has reached out to him. Jesus has truly helped him. Jesus has brought healing into his life. And so you can imagine his first thought, as was the first thought of many people that Jesus ministered to, is, we want to be like the disciples. We want to be those that go with him. But Jesus doesn't let that happen. You see, the ministry or the mission or the witness of this demon-free man is very much amongst the community in which he's lived. He's going to be a marvelous, transformative witness, isn't he, to those who'd observed him all this time. I mean, he's shouting at the top of his voice. He's behaving wildly. He's living in wild places. And now Jesus brings into his heart and into his life real peace and real healing. So that's going to be a marvelous witness. That's going to be transformative, not only for him, but for those who hear the words, for those who see his life, for those who are able to come into contact with him now in a very different way. That's why Jesus tells us and tells him in verse 39 something that's important then, and I think it's important for all of us. Return home and tell how much God has done for you. So the man went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for him. So now he's not wild, but gosh, has he got a story to tell. And he wants to go and tell it all across the town and the region, all the things that God has done for him through the person of Jesus. And in all our lives, it's a really nice interaction that we've had this conversation about Wesley Urban Mission today, which is really about a mission, not at the ends of the earth, but in our own country, in our own city. And on our own doorsteps are so many of the places where our witness needs to be made, where the story of what God has done needs to be told. And that story is of how Jesus transforms our lives. Now, we're not like the demon-possessed man. We've not been ill for all those years. We're not behaving wildly. But gosh, there are many ways in which we need to feel the touch of Christ. We need to see the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives. And when that happens, wow, what a witness is going to be there. And Jesus is telling all of us, go back to your own people. Go back to the places you come from. And tell the story of the good news so that it can be seen. So, Jesus is prepared to upset the status quo. He wants to bring healing to those who are in the strangest of places, the marginalized, those who are easily cast out from other people. And then he wants them and he wants us to go back and tell the wonderful story of his release and of his freedom.